Okay, today we're going to look at subtracting integers. Now, one of the things about math that's pretty cool is that sometimes when you're learning a new thing or what seems like a new thing, like subtracting integers, really what you're doing is you're learning a small new skill to add on top of something you already know. That's the case here. We're not going to learn something brand new. What we're going to do is we're going to take that tool that you now have, that tool of adding integers, and we're going to use it to solve subtraction problems. And we're going to do that with a method called adding the opposite. So we're going to subtract by adding the opposite. So the first thing I'd like you to do is take a look at that sheet that you have. I got mine here in front of me. And you'll notice there are a couple problems. We're going to look at how 5 minus 2, positive 5 minus positive 2 is the same as 5, positive 5 plus negative 2. Now I know you can do this. Positive 5 minus positive 2 has an answer of 3. You got that down. Let's see if this also has an answer of 3. So to do this, we're going to have our 5 positives. So let me get my 5 positives here. And we're going to have 2 negatives. That will create 2 zero pairs, one right there, one right there. So my idea of keeping track of 0 pairs, I've got 2 0 pairs. And what's left are these 3 positives. So we know that all of that equals 3. There's our answer to that problem, which is exactly what we had for this problem. All right, let's try another one. Positive 3 minus positive 1. So we all know positive 3 minus positive 1 is, let me get the dark color here, is positive 2. Let's see if this also gives us positive 2. So we have positive 3 plus negative 1. So we need 3 positives, there they are, and we need 1 negative. That's going to create 1 0 pair. And it's going to leave 2 positives. That's right. That's exactly the answer we got over here. The answer we got was that when you do 3 minus 1, you get 2. And when you do 3 plus negative 1, you get positive 2. So in each of those cases, we used an idea. Go ahead and write this on your paper. We used an idea called adding the opposite. That's what we did. And let me go through that just a little bit further. Let's do it with this one right here. So here was our original problem. Our original problem was positive 3 minus positive 1. The positive 3 is what we start with. We can't change that. That's just, it's there. It's what we have. So we have to bring down that positive 3. That's what we're beginning with. You can't change what you're starting with. Heck, if you could change what you're starting with, math teachers would have like billions of dollars. We would just say, hey, see that negative 10? Make it a billion. Then you'll notice then what we did was we added. So we changed this to addition, which means we went from this subtraction to addition. And what we added was a negative 1. So what we started with here was a positive 1, and what we added was the opposite, was this negative 1. So we did this adding the opposite. I'm going to grab that really quick, shrink it down, stick it right there. So we can go back to this one and see that the same things were happening. So here again, we had positive 5 minus positive 2. The positive 5 did not change. You cannot change what you're starting with. What did change was we changed from subtraction right here to addition. And the other thing that changed was instead of having positive 2, we added negative 2. We added the opposite. Here we go. We got positive 2 right here, and we added the opposite of positive 2. We added a negative 2. All right, so let's try that with a problem that you can't solve in your head, because you could solve this in your head. 5 minus 2 is 3, or 3 minus 1 is 2. Let's take a look at this problem. Negative 6 minus positive 3. Believe it or not, the most common answer here is 3. Maybe you first looked at it and thought, oh, that's 3. Let's see if it's 3. This one doesn't come into my head right away. So I'm going to go with the one we rewrote. Notice, negative 6, that didn't change. In fact, let me write it down. Let me write it underneath it so you can see the part. So we kept a negative 6. That part, that starting part, does not change. The starting part back here didn't change. Starting part here didn't change. Come straight down. What did change was we went to addition. So instead of subtracting, we added. And the thing we added was the opposite. So we had positive 3. We added negative 3. We took this and we added its opposite. Now, I bet you're already looking at this because you've gotten good at adding integers. I bet you're already looking here and going, oh, that's 6 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 negatives, and 3 more negatives. Those are all the same thing. There are no 0 pairs at all. So since they are all the same thing, we just add them all together and we get our answer, which is negative 9. Now, how could you prove that? How could you prove that that's negative 9? Well, let's go back to this problem. 3 minus 1 equals 2. Let me just rewrite that up here without the plus sign. Let's go back. This is trip back down to 2nd grade or so. 3 minus 1 equals 2. Well, the way to check any subtraction problem is you take these two numbers, the one you were subtracting and the answer, and you add them together. So the 1 plus the 2, and if you did it right, what you will always get is that number. Let's check it over here. Let's see if the same thing is true. We take the 5 minus the 2. We said that's 3. So then we take the 2, the number we were subtracting, add it to the 3, the number we got as an answer, and that gives us the 5. That gives us that number. So we can do the same thing here. We can take the number that we got, the negative 3. Oh, I have to go back up to my original problem, though. So I have to go back to my original problem, and I have to say, okay, so I said negative 6 minus positive 3 equals negative 9. So I can check that by saying, take the positive 3, add it to the negative 9. Going to make my negative 9 a little bit bigger there. There we go. And that needs to equal the negative 6. It needs to equal what I started with. Well, is that true? Let's prove it. I say yes, but let's prove it to prove that it's true. I'm going to use this space to do this problem. So let me bring that problem down. Positive 3 plus negative 9 equals negative 6, which means I had 3 positives right there. I had 9 negatives, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I had 3 0 pairs right there, 3 0 pairs. And what was left over after I had my 3 0 pairs are these 6 negatives right there. So there you go. That's your introduction. Now, we're going to have a lot of chance to practice here. So we'll do a couple more problems together, and then it'll be your turn to go ahead, pause the video, and practice doing some of the problems on your own. Okay, so let's go ahead and move down on your paper. Here's our subtraction problem. Step 1, rewrite that as a problem where you're adding the opposite. And I'm going to do them down below because I think it's easier to follow if we do it down below. So first, the thing we start with, the positive 8, we cannot change. That positive 8 is the beginning of our problem. We change from subtraction, we change to addition. And finally, instead of -5, we have to add the opposite. That's +5. So this -5 changes to +5. And now we have a problem that's all positive numbers. If I wanted to, I could rewrite that in a form without showing those positives. And we have 5 plus 8 is 13. Let's check our work. Let's go back to our original problem. We're gonna get in the habit of checking our work. Let's go back to the original problem. So there's the original problem. We're saying the answer is positive 13. So if that's true, then the positive 13, the answer, plus the -5 has to equal the 8. So the positive 13 plus the -5 has to equal the positive 8. Well, I have 13 positives. I'm adding 5 negatives. Those 5 negatives are going to cancel out 5 of those. There will be 5 0 pairs. And what will be left are the 8 positives. After these 5 cancel out 5 of those, there'll be 8 left. Okay, let's try another. And by the way, at any point, if you're starting to feel like, oh, I think I get this, what I'd really like to do is just pause the video and see if I understand it, then do that. See, you're in total control. Pause the video and then do a problem and turn it back on and we'll go through it. Okay, so -4 minus -6. Step 1, write down the thing that doesn't change. The -4 does not change. The subtraction becomes addition. And the -6 becomes a +6. The opposite. All right, this step here is always getting the opposite. So now we have 4 negatives plus 6 positives. So I could, if I wanted to diagram that out, nothing wrong with still diagramming. There's my 4 negatives. There are my 6 positives, 2, 4, 5, and 6. 0 pair, 0 pair, 0 pair, 0 pair, 4 0 pairs. And what's left over are those 2 positives. So I know that my answer is +2. Let's check the answer. Let's see if it's +2. So I know that if I take the original problem, and I'll put in my answer now. I'm saying the answer is +2. So if I add the -6 and the +2, I should get that. I should get -4. Well, let's see if that's true. If I take the -6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I add the +2, yes, I get 2 0 pairs, and I get 4 negatives left over. This is my proof. This is my proof or my check. That shows I did it correct. And that tells me that that is, in fact, the final answer. Over here, I did my check and proved that, yes, in fact, positive 13 was the final answer. Okay, so review that if you need to. Go back, rewind it if you need to rewind it. And then when you're ready, go ahead and turn it on. We'll do the next problem. And again, if you feel like you can do that problem without me, do it without me, and then just check your answer. Okay, so -7 minus +4. So you know, you've got this down. You know the first step is bring down the amount you start with, add the opposite. So that's what we did. We changed from subtraction to addition, and instead of -4, instead of +4, we're adding -4. We're adding the opposite. The -7, the thing we started with, that just comes down. Maybe I'll bring an arrow just to show. That just comes down each time. That starting thing, it just comes down. 7 negatives plus 4 negatives. Oh, you got this down. They're all negatives. If I drew 7 negatives here and drew 4 more negatives, there would be no 0 pairs. They're all negatives, which means there are no 0 pairs in this problem. And it means the answer is all of those negatives added together. We get -11. Let's put it right there. -11. That's what I'm saying my answer is. Now let me prove it. Let me prove it by taking the +4, adding it to the -11, and seeing if I get the -7. You bet, 4 positives. I can write those out if you'd like me to. Let's do one more where we write them out. There are the 4 positives. Here come the 11 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Just about into the margin. 1 0 pair, 2 0 pairs, 3 0 pairs, 4 0 pairs. I got this little negative left over here all by itself. Let's put it with its friends. And then let's see how many negatives there are. Should be 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Look at that. 7 negatives. Has to match that. So there's my proof on that problem. There you go. And notice, the proof really only takes maybe a minute or so. So it's really worth doing the proof to be sure that you have it right. All right, we are on a roll. Let's go down and look at another problem. So -10 minus +3. So we know that's going to come down just like it is, -10. This is going to become addition. I think I'll do this in red for a while. That's going to become addition. And this is going to come down, and it's going to be the opposite. What's the opposite of +3? It's -3. Well, here's another one that I'm going to have all negatives now. No 0 pairs. Let me jot that down. There are no 0 pairs in this problem. Everything is a negative, which means with no 0 pairs, I just add those together and I get -13. Let me do my proof. My proof for this is, let me put my -13 up here, because we always have to do it. When we go back to our proof, we have to use the original problem. So -10 minus +3 equals -13. If that's true, I can add the +3 and the -13, and what I should get is the -10. Yeah, this is the proof section. And that's absolutely right. If I add 3 positives to 13 negatives, I end up with 3 0 pairs. and I end up with 10 negatives left over. 3 of these cancel, 3 of those 13, and that leaves you with 10. All right, we got to get this over out of the way just a little bit for this next problem. Great. So, positive 9, that just comes down. Let's move it away from the edge there just a little bit. Positive 9. Subtraction becomes, becomes addition. Negative 5, we need its opposite, and that becomes a positive 5. And now we're in a situation just like the last one, except this time everything's positive, which means, again, there are no zero pairs. We add all of these together, and we get 14 positives. Let's do our check. Our check is take the 14, because we said we've got 14 positives. We're saying that's the answer right there. To do our check, we are going to take the number we were subtracting away, the negative 5. We're going to add it to the answer. Remember, you're adding it to what's left. And what we should get is positive 9. Well, sure. 5 negatives and 14 positives. That's going to be 5 zero pairs. So these 5 negatives are canceling out 5 of the positives, and that will leave us with another 9 positives. And I know some of you are saying, oh, I'd like to see that one more time. All right, fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 14 is going to fill up my space here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to need 2 rows. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. 0 pair 1, 0 pair 2, 0 pair 3, 0 pair 4, 0 pair 5. There are my 5 zero pairs. And look what's left. Those 2 plus all 7 of those. There's my proof that I did it correctly. Okay, you're probably getting to a point now where you're starting to feel like, oh, I can do these problems. And that's great. If at any time you feel like I don't really need to listen to the explanation step by step now, I'm going to do the problem, pause the video, do the problem, and then fast forward to the answer, scan to the answer, great. More power to you. So on our next one, maybe you paused and you're back with us. On our next one, here comes the negative 2. That does not change. Here comes our subtraction. That becomes addition. We're adding the opposite. Opposite of negative 5 is positive 5. Negative 2 plus positive 5. Well, that's 2 zero pairs. 2 cancellations, which means whatever you're canceling, you take away from this. So you're canceling out 2 of these, which means you have 3 left. And if we want to check our work, we can go right over here, take the positive 5, add it. Oh, excuse me. See, I started to make a mistake. So let me take a step back. So let's put our positive 3 up here. I got a little ahead of myself. That happens once in a while. All right, so our negative 5, that's what we need. We need our negative 5 plus our answer, positive 3, and that should be what we started with, negative 2. And that's true. 5 positives plus 3 negatives give us 3 zero pairs. And when you're all left over, you have those two negatives, which tells us this answer is correct. Yay for us. All right, we've got 3 more problems left on the front. And then you've got a chance to practice a bunch of problems on the back, but you should be getting to a point where those problems go fairly quickly. So, positive 12 minus negative 16. So step 1, and these 3 got left over in the center here, but we're going to use the space over here so there's room to write our proofs. So positive 12, that's what we started with. That does not change. You know that that's going to change to addition because we're adding the opposite. And then we need to keep track of this. This was a negative 16, so it's going to become a positive 16. Positive 12 plus positive 16. No 0 pairs on this one. Add those together, and you get positive 28. If you want to check yourself, and I hope you're taking time to check yourself, you're going to go ahead, you're going to take that negative 16, because this answer now is positive 28. You've got negative 16, you're going to add the positive 28, and what you should get is positive 12. And I think you can see now, 16 negatives plus 28 positives will give you 16 0 pairs, which will leave 12 remaining. There's our proof. Yay. Boom, boom. All right. So for our next problem, we've got negative 21 minus positive 13. So we're going to rewrite that as negative 21. Let me fix that. There we go. Negative 21 plus negative 13. So I changed my subtraction to addition, changed my positive 13 to negative 13. These are all negatives, which means I will have no 0 pairs. I'll just put them all together. And when I add 21 negatives to 13 negatives, I get 34 negatives. 34 negatives. That's my answer. I'll take just a minute to check that answer. I'll go ahead and take So to check my work, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the positive 13 and I'm going to add it to the negative 34 and see if I get negative 21. Positive 13 plus negative 31, or 34, there will be 13 0 pairs. And if I take the 13 away from the 34, I get the negative 21. All right, one more problem in this set. Positive 43 minus negative 52. The positive 43 does not change. This becomes addition. And I'm going to add a positive 52. So I've got a positive 43 and a positive 52. This has no 0 pairs. Everything's positive, which means we just put those numbers together. 43 and 52 make 95. Positive 95. Again, so positive 95 is my answer. Again, to check my work, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the negative 52 and I'm going to add it to positive 95. So that is 52 zero pairs. That's a lot of zero pairs, man. I'm glad we're not just writing all those out. 52 zero pairs. And when you take the 52 negatives away from the 95 positives, you are left with, yes, you got it, 43 positives. So we know we did that correctly. Okay. All right, so for this side, we're on the back side now, and I'm going to follow a convention all the way through these. And I'm just going to do all the problems, and you can double check and look at your work. You don't have to listen to me each time. And here's how it's going to work. In purple, I'm going to write the problem when it's rewritten as the addition problem. I'm going to write in blue how many zero pairs there are. In this case, there are no zero pairs. Then I'm going to go ahead and write what the answer would be. So since this has no zero pairs, the 34 negatives and the 60 negatives will be added together and we'll get 94 negatives. That will be our answer. I'll put it right there. And then in green, I'm going to go ahead and check my work. And I'm always going to check it by taking whatever was being subtracted, in this case positive 60, and adding it to the answer, in this case negative 94. I'll take a look at how many zero pairs that would create. So for the check, we would have 60 zero pairs here. And I saw many of you, when you were doing a worksheet earlier, you were actually going through and writing down the zero pairs ahead of time because you've become so used to seeing how you get those zero pairs. So used to the fact that the zero pairs are whatever the smaller amount is. We call it the smaller absolute value. And then, since you have 60 zero pairs here, these 60 cancel out 60 of those, and they leave 34. And since that is this number, since those now match, I know I did it correctly. And I'll try to do a little smiley guy to show I did it correctly. So that's what I'm going to do on each of the problems. And what I'd suggest you do is do a batch. If you look at how this side is set up, I'm going to be able to kind of hide those, and then I'll scroll and you'll see just those next three, and then just those next three, and then just those final three. So these first six, I can't really scroll to keep those away from you, but I'd say go ahead, do these first six, and then start the video back up again and check your answers. All right, great. Okay, so here are the first round of answers on the back, the first two rows, and you can see that in each case we had the original problem changed into addition. So changed into addition, changed into addition. You can see there you go. Became an addition problem, became an addition problem. In each case, we're holding on to the number we started with. And then we went through, let me get my answer circled over here in my smiley face. Don't want to leave that one out. And then went through and did that addition problem, got our answer, and then checked it. Now this last one in this row where you have three numbers, well, you change everything to addition first and to the opposites, just like we did. Then add the ones. This is similar to what we did when we were doing adding yesterday. Since these are both positives, we can put them together and get 18 positives plus 2 negatives. That gives us 2 zero pairs, leaves us 16 positives. Then we take that positive 16 plus the original positive 2 plus the original negative 7. And then we do the same thing. We combine the positive 16 and the positive 2 to get positive 18. Add that to negative 7. 7 zero pairs leaves us right here with our positive 11. So we know we did it right. Okay, so if you haven't already, go ahead and pause the video. I'm going to go ahead and just show you the rest of the answers, but I'd like you to pause first so you have a chance to see them. Notice right now, they're not there yet. I haven't done them. So you can keep these in mind while I do the rest and while you practice doing the rest. All right, there you go. There are your next, oops, daisy. There are your next 3 sets of answers. So go ahead and keep those in mind while you do this next batch. I'll leave the video right there, so pause the video. You can pause it on that. You can see those, see all the work you've been doing, all the work you've been doing well, and use that as you move to the next one. Okay, here are the next problems. So -3 minus +7 is -10. Here's the work, the addition problem. Here's the check. +22 minus -13 minus another -10 is +45. Every one of those minus a negative turns into adding a positive. So you're adding a whole bunch of positives there, 45, and there's your check. +15 minus +35. Well, anytime you're taking away more than you have, it's going to be less than 0. In fact, it's a lot less than 0. It's -20. Here's the addition problem, and here's the work for the correction. All right, one last opportunity to pause, do some more work, and then go ahead and check answers. And here are the final problems. So by now, you should either feel really confident doing these, or if you don't feel really confident, you should have an idea what your questions are. What is it about it that you don't understand? And be sure to bring those questions to class and ask so that we can get that nailed down, get that figured out, so you start feeling more successful and you start being more successful. All right, so be sure you bring those questions to class, and I will see you there.